Holy shnikes. From Is That a Niner in there to Shut Up, Richard. Tommy Boy is more than just laughs and one-liners. It's a masterclass in biblical masculinity. What can a guy who took 7 years to graduate college teach us about moving from beloved son to legendary king? Guarantees not included.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me, brother from quite a distance away, but the time we had breakfast, we hugged, Paul Nichols. Hey man, how you doing today?
Hey, I am great, Paul. Glad to be back with you. And I am actually not a hugger, so if you get a hug from me, that's like a special thing. It's kind of a thing with me.
Awesome. I feel honored enough just to have breakfast, but now I'm like double blessed, sort of like
right on, man. I love it.
So, how you been?
Great. Yeah, things are going awesome. We are doing close to empty nester thing here, like we were talking about before we started recording. And yeah, I got an awesome wife. I got 3 awesome stepkids, and I got 1 great dog and 1 dog that is for sale. So if you guys want a good used dog.
So we've spent some time talking beforehand, about almost 50 minutes, just catching up, because this is we think about the 3rd time we tried to do this movie.
Yeah.
And we were like, who was it that canceled on us? I like, it's kind of mutual, because one of us was like, hey, I can't make it. I'm like, thank goodness, because I can't make it either. We're just totally tapped out. And so we are finally getting to discuss Tommy Boy. You know, if you want to have access to some of that pre-show conversation, you can support us. Go to menatthemovies.com/investors to figure out how, and get some access to the behind the scenes, some early access, maybe some stickers, maybe some swag. You never know.
And can I say, we have exceptional witty banter. And so there's a lot of value there. And so,
right.
You really should be an investor in the Men at the Movies podcast.
Yeah, and this one was, we did basically a commercial for Viking River Cruises.
Right.
So I was talking you into it. And a lot of it is you just hear us sort of, the personal conversation, catching up, seeing what's going on, the deeper stuff, which really gives you a context for the conversation we're about to have. But we also sort of figure out, what is it? How do we want to take this conversation? What do we want to talk about? And then you get to hear what we think we're going to say. And then when the episode comes out, you'll hear where God actually led the conversation and what he wanted us to say. And so, yeah, we'd love to have you support the show. We've got a new store up. You can get some Men at the Movies merch. We've got shirts, mugs. And again, that's at menatthemovies.com/merch. So enough of the whatever you call it, the plugs. Enough of the plugs. Let's get to the movie, because this is a movie, came out in 95. You and I were both in college. Tommy Boy. When you think of iconic, Tommy Boy wouldn't be one of the first ones until you watch it and you realize how iconic it is. So what is it about this movie that you're like, dude, next one we want to do? We've done Joe versus the Volcano. We did Tron Legacy. So now we're doing Tommy Boy. What is it about Tommy Boy that said that you're like, we got to do this. We got to talk about this movie.
I mean, Paul, we are pretty much contemporaries as far as ages go, right? And this came out at a similar, at the same time we were going through kind of similar parts of our journey in college and doing our thing. And this was a obviously a lighthearted buddy comedy. I mean, this is, sorry, Bill Simmons, this is Apex Mountain for Chris Farley. Right? I mean,
what else would it be?
He had a short.
It was the Chippendales sketch on Saturday Night Live.
That's a pretty good one. Or the Taster Choice blind tasting commercial from SNL where he freaks out because they gave him Taster's Choice. But I mean, he had a short but brilliant career, and this was, I mean, how much better could it have? Nobody else could have played Tommy Boy. Nobody else. And, we're sitting at dinner last night and my daughter just got home from overseas and I was telling her I'm recording, we're talking about our weekend and somebody said, what movie? And I said, guess. And she said, Nacho Libre. I said, you're close. You're close. And then my son, he said, what is it? Shrek? And I said, you're getting closer. And then finally like, oh, Tommy Boy. Yeah. A fat, funny guy goes on a journey with a sarcastic sidekick. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tommy Boy. Sure. So there's a lot of fun to it, but it's also, it's sneaky poignant in parts.
Yeah.
And you'll be laughing your head off. And then all of a sudden somebody will say something and kind of gets you right here. Yeah. And so it's a laugh out loud, just fun screwball comedy. But then there's a little more depth to it if you start thinking about it a little bit. That's probably one of the reasons I love it.
Yeah. And it did not take long. Like rewatching this movie, I don't remember the last time I'd seen it, but it did not take long for me to feel like I was back in my dorm room watching this with my buddies, and because it became so much a part of our vernacular and the words that we used, conversation. You even said last week you used "Shut up, Richard." And if you don't believe me, I dare you not to remember where you were when you first heard this, when you first saw this clip.
I did call earlier when using the phone.
Earlier, when was that?
Or later, when then I left a message.
A message? What number did you call?
2, 4, 9er, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I can't hear you. You're trailing off. And did I catch a 9er in there? Were you calling from a walkie-talkie?
No, it was cordless.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Don't. Not here. Not now.
Did you hear I finally graduated?
Yeah, and just a shade under a decade, too. All right.
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
I know. They're called doctors.
I mean, that's like the first really big scene of the movie where you sort of start to get to see them as people and their interactions. And was that a 9er in there?
No, it was a cordless. I mean, like that explains it. Yeah. Oh, it's cordless. Got it. Yeah.
I love the phrase you used, the sneaky poignant, because it is. And there's also this sense of nostalgia, because in this movie, the guys are sort of shaped up to be, yes, he was in school for 7 years. They're called doctors, but so they're in probably their mid-20s. And so, but again, that feels like that same age that we were the first time we saw it. So that could have easily been us. We were in 19, 20 in that time frame, getting ready to leave college, looking at the future, wondering what it was going to be like. And these are sort of your two options. You've got Richard, who's smart, sarcastic, knows all the stuff, but is really awkward with people. And then you've got Tommy, who's the opposite. Not great with books, but everybody loves Tommy.
Yes.
Except for, very few people who have stuff going on. Basically.
Yeah. And you see that, I mean, even when he's in college, right? When he's walking through the loading dock or walking through the factory floor and everybody, oh, hey, Tommy, and congratulations on that D+, and, all these, he's really beloved by everybody. He seems like from the get-go, he's a goofball, but he's genuinely just a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a good heart.
Mm-hmm.
He loves his rugby guys. You were talking about nobody other than Chris Farley could play this role. Like the physical presence, not just because he's a big dude, but like there's that scene where he's running across campus.
Yeah.
And he is moving. And again, going back to the Chippendales, where he is dancing his ass off, it takes somebody, it's not just, a large man, but a dude who's got some chops, who actually has some physical strength and capabilities, and he worked on the loading docks every summer. You're just a big, strong dude, basically. And we're going to touch on that sort of the lovability of the character here in a minute. But I want to sort of go back and like hit on, like I'm trying to go back in time and hit, because there is that nostalgia piece to this movie where, like, watching it now, all the beats, what happens, the lines, and it's more about remembering watching it with your friends back then from 30 years ago now. So 30-year anniversary of Tommy Boy, I guess. And there is that longing that I have many times to, like, I miss those relationships. I miss that time in college, staying up until 2:00 in the morning, playing poker or playing Mario Kart or just hanging out. We went to Spain a couple years ago, and our friends took us to a wine tasting and met up with some other Americans there. And so they're like, oh, let's go out for more wine afterwards. And we were out till 1 a.m. in a big square in Madrid, smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, this feels like I did in college.
Yeah.
When they use the word nostalgia, there is a sweetness to it and that poignancy that you mentioned. And I've heard before that it's like a memory is good. Like we can be in this sort of a scene in our own lives. It's like, oh, this really is awesome. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's a wedding, it's some graduation. You're doing a bunch of graduation parties because all your friends' kids are graduating these days. And that's the sweet. But they said what really makes it stick in our hearts is the poignancy, that little bit of bitter in that. They're like, if it's just an awesome ride, it sort of flushes out of your system pretty quickly. But it's almost like that bitter piece of it is an anchor that makes those memories set in and make them mean something.
We were talking about lifelong friends, and that's part of what makes a lifelong friend, right? Is you've been through maybe some bitterness with them, or even some conflict or whatever, and you come out stronger on the other side of that. And whether it's, silly, like we tell my friend, shut up, Richard, most of the times it's jokingly, but sometimes I remember a couple times in college, like, shut up, Richard, I'm tired of it, and being serious about it. But then we're still friends, 35 years later. And so, that little twinge really does kind of anchor that a little bit more, I think. I think you're right on that.
And if you look back at the movie of the development of the friendship between Tommy and Richard, because really that's the story. It takes some painful parts. Mm-hmm. And as we see, you said those sneaky, poignant moments where Richard's like, you've been handed all this stuff because your dad's awesome. My dad was never there, and I've had to fight for this. And if you really want to get into this, you've got Richard as the fatherless son, who we all can relate to, even if we've had a dad, because we've experienced fatherlessness in some aspect. And sometimes it's by our own choice.
Right.
We see Richard, he's driven, because he's always searching that father's approval that he never had. He is, in a lot of ways, the older son in the prodigal son story of,
I was just thinking that.
If I work hard enough, maybe I'm not going to get my dad's approval, but maybe I'll get Tom Callahan's approval, because he's a pretty good father figure.
He's a phenomenal father figure throughout it's kind of dripped in through the whole story. Obviously Tommy, but then when Tommy's walking through the factory floor, as he comes back, and everyone's, hey, Tom, and he talks to, I think his name is Lewis, the guy grinding the shoots a filter. He says, yeah, I was going crazy on the dock, and so your dad brought me back in here. And so Big Tom is been portrayed as somebody who is, he is the archetypal good father, right? He's a good king. He exists to build a realm that is, how would I say that his realm that he builds is fertile ground for the growth of other people and the development of other people, and the people that he serves. That's what his realm is for, is to serve his people. It's not to grow his own empire, though he's doing that, but he's saving a town, in this movie, and all of those things, and taking care of guys like Lewis or Michelle, and all the people that work there. That's what Big Tom's legacy really is not just Big Tom, but it's Callahan Auto Parts, the thing that takes care of the whole town.
Right, because as Tommy's coming in, it's like, oh man, this place is closed. This place is closed, and that's sort of they call it the Rust Belt for a reason.
Right.
All these closed down factories, and I think especially in the mid 90s, that was something we realized was happening. Of wow, where have all the small towns gone? And as the factories moved away, as things became more automated, as people lost their jobs because of big business, and back then it was Walmart was the big bad guy. Now it's Amazon, I'm guessing. But even to the point of Richard was Big Tom's right-hand man. Like he recognized potential in the people, and they talked about Callahan Auto Parts as being a big family. Like family was a big theme throughout this. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, we've got Richard, who feels the lack and lives out of it. He becomes a sarcastic, bitter sort of, because he knows how hard he's had to work. And he sees how easy Tommy has it, but Tommy doesn't realize it because that's just his way of life. And here he is in his mid-20s, roughly. When he gets home from school, he and his dad do this dance together. There's this joy. There's this delight. Obviously, he's told everybody about his son graduating, even when they're in the brake parts place and he's dodging the hooks. We see the childlike wonder of Tommy. It's like, can I open my eyes? I never told you to cover them. But he's like, oh, you got a surprise for me. I can't wait. And when he gets his own office, we see in our jaded old man, midlife.
Yeah. Our Gen X cynicism.
We are hardcore Gen Xers. And we look at that, you're like, nepotism at its worst. This guy's a buffoon. He shouldn't be given the keys to the castle. He shouldn't be given a job. He should be out being the muscle. That old Planet Fitness thing where I lift things up and put them down. Like, that's all this dude's really good for.
Yeah.
And because we've adopted Richard's mindset. Mm-hmm. Whereas we have a father who wants to give good gifts. I won't even say even when, I'll say especially when we don't deserve them.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, again, we joke about the cynicism, but it really is a thing. I mean, Richard was thinking probably just that. And he even said so, oh yeah, why shouldn't you have your own office? You've been here 10 minutes. And, but at the same time, from one hand, or on one hand, it's Big Tom's right to do whatever he wants with his company, right? His name's on the building, and Tommy's his son. Of course, he wants to give good gifts to his son. That's part of building that kingdom is so that I can share that with my son, and hopefully he'll grow it, one day. And there's even when he first comes in, right? He's going through all the pictures, and then there's Tommy coming through the door.
Yeah.
That you're next for Callahan Auto, and at the beginning of the movie where we are in this story, he is not. There's no part of him that's ready except for his last name to be that. And so now he's got to go from the beloved son. He's got to go on it really is a hero's journey of sorts that Tommy undergoes. But he's got to be initiated, and he's got to go through those trials to initiate himself so that he can. I know. I mean, this movie just serves that up like a pudding. It's great. And so you see that he's got to go through that in order to be able to take on that responsibility that he's meant for. But he's just not ready yet at this part.
Right. And what I was just realizing was, you've got Richard, who's sort of the appearance of the older son in the prodigal son story. Even, you've been here 10 minutes and you're getting this window office corner, you getting this high thing. I've been all my life, I've worked for you.
Right.
Where's my office? Where's my joy? What is it? Thank you for picking me to babysit baby Huey, whatever he calls him. But because Tommy is immersed in his beloved son status, he doesn't take his inheritance. He gives it away.
That's probably the most heroic moment in the movie. right when they're in that boardroom and he says, what if I put up the company in my house as collateral, and the one banker or the lawyer, whoever does, he says, you're giving up your inheritance?
Yeah.
And Tommy says, yeah, if it'll save the company. My dad said this is the future. I trust my dad. And so, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that. It was absolutely heroic.
And so before we get to that scene in the boardroom where he then steps out and goes into the journey, I want to talk about how often we don't sit in our status as beloved son. Whenever you meet a man, there's always a wounded boy behind the face of every man, right? Behind every fig leaf, behind every poser. And so much of our source, the source of our problems, internal and external, come from, I don't even want to say, like you said the line before we started, he spent a lot of time in the beloved son stage. We, cynical disciples of the internet that we are, we would say too much time. He's childish. He's a buffoon. He's a waste of time. He doesn't take things seriously. We have no problem hurling criticism at Tommy Callahan. Why do we do that? Because if we're treating Tommy that way, we're going to treat our own hearts that way.
I wonder, Paul, if it's part of that cynicism of Richard comes through in us. When specifically, I'm thinking of later in the movie when he said, I never had a dad, but your dad looked out for me and he took me in. And there's probably a huge part of that within all of us who have been wounded by our fathers outright or inadvertently. There's good dads that every dad's going to wound his son and his daughter.
Right.
You can't escape it, unfortunately. But there's a big part of that. And I got to wonder if sitting in that beloved son identity isn't almost a little too painful because of what we've experienced. And we've experienced the other side of that. And that seems more real than what the spiritual truth is behind that we are the beloved son of a good king and a good father. And we've got the experience, we've got the scars to prove it too. and that feels more real than, because it's right here in front of our face, than what might be, a spiritual truth. And that really is a big chunk of living in the matrix, I think.
Dude, that line was so good. The scars feel more real.
They do, don't they?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I've been sitting this week with processing some hard stuff, some grief and some loss, some loneliness. And what it's actually doing is revealing fears of being an afterthought, being invisible, being forgotten. And so in this process, God's far away, right? God's silent. Like, I'm praying, I'm going to him, worshiping. Where are you? I don't feel your presence. And here's the thing. Feelings are a terrible barometer. They're a terrible indicator of what's real. I remember a pastor used to say, we wait to feel forgiven to act forgiven.
Ugh.
When the truth is, you are forgiven. Right? The same thing. You are the beloved son. You had the king come out, chase you down, put the ring and the robe on your hands, welcome you home, threw a party, danced, invite you up on the stage to dance at the wedding together, right? Like, that's the beloved father. But the scars feel more real than the truth of the love of our Father.
Mm-hmm.
Because we say, if you loved me, this wouldn't have happened. If you loved me, you would have healed my friend. If you loved me, you would have saved my marriage. If you loved me, I wouldn't have lost my job. Because we base it on external stuff.
Right.
Because to believe otherwise feels really naive and childish.
It's naive and it's childish and it's exposing. It's exposing for what we really believe, and so it's almost easier to at least for me, to hide behind the cynical. I wear that cynical Gen X badge a little bit too hard. I really do. I mean, I really, really do. But what that's in service of self-protection for me and for a lot of people, I think, a lot of times, right? Because I don't want to, what if it's not true? Or what if I lean too far out and it's not really, he's not as good as I want him to be?
What if the ground gives way?
What if the ground gives way? Exactly. When the reality is the exact opposite, is that we have, like, our minds can't comprehend how good he is. Like, it's so much. My wife loves to, when we talk about the kingdom, she's convinced that she's going to walk around and just see things and think, oh my gosh, this is like, I had no idea it was this good. And she's going to be in a constant state of wonder over how good he really is and how, all the pieces really fit together. But his goodness and his straight delight in us covers all of that. Mm. And yeah, I mean, things are required of us, right? We have assignments, but he gives assignments to his sons that he loves. And we see a little bit of that, a Big Tom, giving an assignment to his son that he loves.
Yeah. He throws him the catalog. Hey, familiarize yourself with this. He knows where he's going. It's not really up to Tommy to figure it out. And then his dad dies, right?
Yeah.
And he loses his anchor. Mm-hmm. Sort of. Because he's had a quarter century of, you're my son, you're my delight, you're my joy. All it was 100% acceptance. And because he's got that foundation. Then in the board meeting where they're saying, we're going to have to sell the company. And we know that selling the company means everybody's going to lose their jobs. The town's going to go under, like, cats and dogs sleeping together, mass hysteria. Bad things are going to happen. And unlike the prodigal son, the younger son in the prodigal son story, who says, give me my inheritance so I can go spend it and waste it. He says, give me my inheritance so I can invest it in my father's kingdom.
Yes.
And then he steps up in a way that nobody else, except there's one guy. When you're watching this clip, and when they're in the boardroom, when Tommy volunteers to go on the sales trip, there's one guy who's like, oh, he's stepping up. So I want you guys, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, which you absolutely should, and if not, if you're listening, go check it out on the YouTube channel. But watch for that one guy and see him step up and see what happens when we are firmly rooted in the foundation of our Father's love and acceptance and validation. Then we're no longer striving, we're no longer chasing, we're no longer working, we're no longer Richard. But we can step into who it is we're meant to be.
Maybe I can help. I'll give you everything I've got. My house, the stock. If I give you that stuff as collateral, then will you give us that loan?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Wait a second. What are you saying, Tommy? You just want to hand over your inheritance?
Right. If it'll help get the brake pads going. My dad said the new pads were the future, Callahan.
But who's going to sell them?
I will. I'll go on my dad's sales trip.
I'll be damned.
Whores running around doing their little behind shake for the menfolk.
I kind of like her idea.
For Christ's sake. Once during the war, I visited a prostitute, and my life has been a living hell ever since. Now, hold on a minute. Do we really want to put the future of the company in Tommy's hands?
We're running low on options here, Ted. I can hold off Zelinsky for a couple of weeks. What do we got to lose?
How about the jobs of 300 people? No offense, Tommy, but you don't know the first thing about brake pads.
Hey, I know I'm probably not the answer you guys are looking for. But I feel like I gotta do something. You're right. I don't know much about this stuff. But he does.
Oh, no.
That's right. Richard knows more about brake pads than anyone in here. And since you were my dad's right-hand man, I'd say you had the rest of the year pretty much wide open.
Time out. Bad idea. I don't think anyone could help baby Huey out there on the road.
Do you have a better suggestion?
Absolutely heroic. In a silly, Chris Farley kind of way, but
right. I
love what you said earlier, Paulus. He's wanting his inheritance not so he can, go and find the when the whores come in. He's not looking at that. He's wanting to invest his inheritance to further his father's kingdom and to save this town, to save these people. I don't know another word for it. It's absolutely heroic. He is sacrificed. It's masculinity to its core. It's the willing assumption of sacrificial responsibility. It's strength in the service of love. However you want to say it. That is Tommy's. That's his inflection point in this entire movie. And of course, the movie changes when they got to go on the road and the whole thing. But that really is where the story really starts for Tommy. Everything else was prologue to get him to this moment. And he was prepared by 20 some years of being the beloved son and saying, I was a beloved son, but only in the context. And he was taught well by his father, right? That resources are to be enjoyed, yes, but utilized on behalf of others. And Tommy's saying, I want to build my dad's kingdom. Because I'm made in his image. He really is made in his dad's image. And so he's furthering his dad's work. I mean, we go 10 different ways on this.
Yeah. First, he offers up his inheritance to further, because he believes in his father's kingdom.
Yeah.
And the kingdom that he has set up and established. And then you see it, he's like, I can't sit around and do nothing. Sort of like David and Goliath. David shows up. Is no one going to try to do this? Is no one going to try to take down the giant? And realize we don't have to have all the answers. God's going to put people. It was, in the with the apostles and the missionary journeys, there was always two of them. Mm-hmm. Paul and Silas, Paul and Barnabas. There's always, even when Jesus sent them out, he sent them out in twos.
Yes.
And it was something Richard didn't want to do because, again, he was fatherless. His father now has disappeared again. He didn't have a dad. Now the dad he sort of latched onto is dead. And so he's like, no, there's nothing but to do but to go visit the whores. And it's typically not the people that we would want to be aligned with us. It's like, no, I want this guy because he seems like he's got it all together. You mentioned earlier how you're moving shops and sort of having more space. And it reminded me of that proverb about when there's no cattle, the barns are clean.
Yeah, right.
But with bigger barns come more cows, come a lot more shit to deal with.
Yes.
And we don't want to deal with the shit, but we see with Tommy, because of his status as beloved son, he can engage with Richard. They find a song that they like and they connect over. They go through some crazy, painful scenes and things. The car door falls off. What'd you do? And even they get in fights, as brothers do. And it's interesting because of how, like, I just mentioned the idea of brothers, because when we are the beloved son, there's no sense of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first thing I played at the beginning, brothers don't shake hands, brothers gotta hug. Like, here comes this guy who's a con man coming in to steal, maybe not kill, but destroy. Like, he just wants the money. But he greets him with open arms. He's like, I always wanted a brother. And he finds one, but it's not Paul, who's the con man. He finds one in Richard.
Totally. Yeah, I wish he wasn't named Paul. I mean, that's a disservice too.
Yeah.
But no,
at least it was a good looking dude.
He is a good looking dude. That's true. He's a handsome man for sure. And but you're right. I think he did come in. He came in to steal the money, kill the company, and destroy everything that Tommy loved.
The town.
The whole thing. But then you see Richard's arc at the beginning, right? He's so excited and so specific about his car as everything. And as the movie kind of progresses and his car gets more and more destroyed by Tommy primarily, but then Richard cares less and less and less, to the point where he's now bought into the mission 100%, to where they pull up to the airport. The guy says, you can't leave your car here. And it's just like in Stripes. He says, there, you can keep it. We're not parking it. We're abandoning it. And he could care less about his car because he's bought into the mission that Tommy called him up into, and the adventure and the purpose. And so you see that really forms their brotherhood right there, not just, marriage or DNA or whatever, but the trials and the time on the road, really. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a cool arc of you see Richard go through, and, he's still himself, but he's a different Richard at the
different
end.
Kind of dick.
Yeah. Right.
There is a turning point, an inflection point. That board meeting was Tommy's, where he began stepping into the identity that he was born to be, being grounded in the love of his father. But by the way, that does not guarantee that everything's going to go well, that everything's going to be easy. Our road of initiation is full of trials and tribulations, just like Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. But why is he doing it? He's going through that for his father's kingdom, to rescue, to save, to protect, because he has his father's heart.
Yes.
But he feels the pressure. And so some of that is what we experience. And I think the other part of this beloved son stage is we're in a hurry to get out of it, when I don't think we should be. because we see Tommy in the first several attempts to sell, he's told no. Okay, then no. All right. Thank you for your time. He's leaving very quickly. And he's, even when they get a maybe, then he's trying to be someone he's not, trying to talk him into it, but he's not connecting with him. Like whatever those things, the vehicles were on the desk, I'm guessing probably meant something to the guy behind the desk.
Oh my gosh, that's one of the funniest scenes of this whole movie. Hey, you're driving along. Yeah.
Oh no, the humanity. But again, we see him again working, trying, grinding, taking Richard's approach. Richard does, what was it? They like, the science makes sense. You build a good product, but I don't like you.
Right.
You're a smug asshole who looks down on people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when Tommy is able to connect, and then in the restaurant, it kind of seems like he's not pitching. He's not trying to get the lady to open the kitchen early for him because he wants chicken wings. And he's talking about how bad a salesman he is. And even that's kind of weird. And she's even like, you're mental, but I'll go turn the fryers on. And that's what he was really wanting through that thing. And that connecting to the people of saying, in a way, is self-deprecating, but it's also very honest of that's what he did. When you see something that he wants so badly, and then you just choke the life out of it because we're grinding and we're striving. We think it's all up to us because we're not in that beloved son stage anymore, because we feel like our fathers abandoned us, because the scars feel more real than some amorphous, vague love of an invisible father. Like, yeah, it's just weird. What that guy said hurt a lot more than anything that God could heal me from.
Yeah, and I know that I'm seated with Christ in the heavenlies because that's what it says in Ephesians. And I know that I'm his beloved son because that's what it says elsewhere. And I know that there's no condemnation because I'm in Christ Jesus because that's in Romans and all these things. But I still got to pay the mortgage. Or I still just lost my job. Or take it back. Or that girl in the absolute angel in English class who sits 2 rows ahead of me wouldn't give me the time of day for anything. And those things are the things that feel more real because they're right up here in front of our faces versus trying to understand the eternal truth of that. And I think anybody who says they don't struggle with that will lie about other things too.
Obviously struggles with honesty.
Right? Sure. And I mean, Paul, I've been following Christ a long time. 35 years. And there's still days when I found myself at the end of the day, like doubting, gosh, is this really real?
Yeah.
And I really wish that those days were way fewer and way more further in between than they are. And it's not every day, but it's more days than I'm comfortable with. And I want to live out of that reality versus trying to just muscle my way into it. But it's hard sometimes. It's really hard. It's really hard. And so good for Tommy for living out of that. And then once he is living in the way that he's meant to be, like you said, he's not trying to be Richard, trying to sell like Richard. He's not trying to do the science or whatever, because that just ends in just abject disaster. But then Richard even says, that board of the head knocked something loose. And, and Tommy's saying, I was just having fun. We got that old meat lover's pizza in the trunk. But when he's having fun, then right, things start going well for him because he's made in his father's image and he's got his own unique personality. That's what really starts to work for him, and they start to take off from there. And again, I know it's Hollywood and it's meant to be funny and everything, but it's still, there's still a lot of truth there.
That mindset, right? I'm just having fun. I don't care if I get the wings or not, because I'm going to eat.
Right. He's living from abundance, like you talked about earlier.
Right. There's nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. And when we look at us in our middle-aged years, hitting half a century, and looking back at who we were 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I guess, 30 years ago, math. I was told there'd be no math today. And that mindset when we were there in our around 20 years old in our college days, it was we had nothing to lose.
Right.
And now we feel like we have so much to lose. And there's so much pressure. We went to Uganda this year, and I, as part of my story is I've stepped away from nursing, where I used to be the nurse or healthcare provider or whatever. And the last few years I've been filming. In 23, I was a one-man film crew. It was me and my camera and my gimbal going around doing all the stuff. Last year, there was somebody there who worked in television in Kampala, and he came and helped me. So we worked the cameras together. This year, I had 4 cameras that I borrowed from a buddy of mine. Shout out to Robert Moore with God's Glory and Men's Real Stories podcast. Go check them out.
Definitely.
Yeah. If you want real, like no movies, but all story stuff and God's transforming lives, then go check out that podcast. Also much more well-produced and edited than mine. So much better production content. And so I show up to his house to get to collect the 4 cameras and lenses and batteries and tripods. He's like, "Oh, what are you going to do with all this stuff?" And I look at him. I say, "I have absolutely no idea." I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. All I know is I'm going to Uganda, schlepping, lights, schlepping cameras, and trusting God to bring the action, I guess." And I get there, and the guy who helped me last year had 2 friends come help him this year, guys who worked on the media team at the church they go to there. And so they each took a camera. And then there was another guy who's like, "Hey, I just want to take pictures. Do you have a camera I could use?" It's like, "Well, I have this 4th camera. Here you go." I spent the weekend. I didn't myself capture any of the moments. Like one of the guys took the GoPro. So we're getting, as we're running around, there's a video of kids running. It was crazy. So for me, there was, my brain's moving faster than my mouth. So we show up at this place, and this guy lives in a brick cube with a metal door in it. I mean, this is what you'd see in like those old Southern prison movies where they'd put the isolation. They're like, put him in solitary confinement. It's about that size.
Oh, wow.
And he lives there with his wife and his baby, like infant, toddler age. And as we're there, my job now, I don't worry about the cameras or what they're shooting. I worry about the conversation and kind of hearing, pulling the story out. But when we drove up, I saw a couple kids and they were playing. And those old like images from the 1900s where it's like a hoop and a stick is what people played with. Well, this was like a rubber tire and an old water bottle crushed. So it scooped and curved around the tire, and they would push the tire with it, and they would race.
Wow.
And so we did and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before." And so as we're wrapping up, we're starting even putting the gear away. I was like, "Hey, Vince," I saw one of the kids run away. It's like, "Hey, go shoot him pushing the tire with his water bottle." Like that was sort of my input on that. 5 minutes later, there's probably 10 to 15 kids racing up and down the road, just laughing and some of them were just running. They didn't even have a tire or a water bottle. And to watch those kids. And then what was really cool is one of the guys who was driving us, who calls me dad, he went, because he grew up as a street kid. And now he's married and has a job driving, and he's paying for the suites for these kids who just happen to be in the street and running around and playing. And that happened because I showed up and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was willing to take direction. I was willing to give things away. Like, it's hard if you've been the one holding the camera for years, to say, no, you do it, to trust them to capture the stuff, to be able to say, hey, I saw how you did this. Don't do it like this anymore. Like, the way you did it messed up. Like, here's how I want it.
Mm-hmm.
Take some cojones when you're walking in saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but here's the way I want it. Feels very like when Jesus told Peter to throw your nets on the other side. He's like, you're a carpenter. You're a preacher. You're a rabbi. What do you know about fishing?
Yes.
Okay. Because if we live in the foundation of the beloved Son, there truly is nothing to lose. Like you meant, the abundance word. Like it's not a zero-sum game. We're not living in scarcity. Does that mean life won't be painful? No. You know, when my friend died, I spent basically the rest of the day crying. Some of it was just because I missed my friend. Most of it was because I missed my friend. Some of it was actually sort of gratitude that he's not suffering anymore. He's received his ultimate healing. And some of it's sorrow for his wife and daughters and brothers that he left behind, and just grieving for the pain that they've got to suffer through. But ultimately, right, we know that we have nothing to lose. We know that our future is secure. Like you said, I know because it's in the Bible that these light and momentary sufferings are not worth comparing to the ultimate glory that we're going to go through. But it's when you're in those moments that you're like, do I really believe this? Or do I believe it's up to me? Do I have the boldness to be childlike? Sometimes to feel childish. So the turning point for Tommy was, I'll go. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, very Frodo. I do not know the way. Richard took a little more convincing, but it was when Richard saw Tommy at the restaurant get the wings. He's like, oh, like that's the first time he believed in Tommy.
Yes.
And so that leads to this scene where they're in this car shop. And the guy's like, I'm not doing it because there's a guarantee on the box. And this guarantee makes me feel safe. It makes me feel warm at night because we want a guarantee, right?
We're risk averse.
Right?
Totally.
Oh, if you love me, you're going to give me the guarantee, right?
Right. And if you love me, you're going to give me these things and I don't have to be exposed. I can just kind of sit in the beloved Son my whole life.
Right.
Which in some ways we are, right? I mean, I'd say our primary identity, but at the same time, he has assignments for us. And if you only sit in the beloved Son your entire life, that's Peter Pan. Because that shirks, eventually you're going to start shirking some responsibility. But instead of the beloved Son being a stage, I think it's probably more of a foundational thing that's where we get our strength from. And that's our launching pad to go through all the stages, right? The warrior, the lover, eventually the king, which is where you and I are in kind of our kingly stages. And you even becoming a better king by directing those guys with the camera. I mean, my version of that is, we're taking on a new shop space, and we got the keys yesterday, and with my wife and two of our three went over last night, and we're walking around praying over the space. And I had this moment where, holy crap, this just got real. And I thought, am I up for this? And I really did. I had a moment, right there by the circuit box. Am I up for this? because if this is all up to me and if it's only on me, this thing's going down in flames within 6 months. I mean, seriously, and I'm not trying to be self-deprecating or humble, like for real. If it's on Paul Nichols, we're screwed. Yeah. But if I'm, who I am, made in my Father's image, continually walking moment by moment with him, then we've got a shot. But without him, we're screwed. And so it was a moment for sure. And so walking through those stages you have to have a very firm, rock solid belief in your identity as a beloved son. Otherwise, we'll drift either into cynicism or Peter Pan or something else, right?
Right. Because if he had never left beloved son, he doesn't graduate.
Yeah, he'd still be in college, right? Yeah, he'd be playing rugby,
right.
smoking weed,
He's
right?
Always a kid. But he's called to step up.
Yes.
He's not trying, like you said, it's not out of his effort. It's not like so often I try to leave the beloved son stage by proving myself. Mm-hmm. Oh, let me get involved here. Let me get involved here. If I'm afraid of being an afterthought and invisible, I'm going to do all that I can to force people to notice me out of my woundedness and brokenness. But if I can sit back and accept the missions as they come and not look for my own missions to pull in the Mission Impossible stuff. It's like, don't do the jobs that aren't mine to do.
Yeah.
But when the moment comes to step into that with boldness and confidence, that we don't really have anything to lose. Like, if Tommy does nothing, they're going to lose the company. Mm-hmm. He can't screw up because they're already going to lose the company.
Right.
So the only thing that can do is improvement.
Yeah.
And so I want to play where the light comes on for Tommy and he gets it. Where he's at the guy and they're talking about the guarantee and I love that how we want the guarantee of success. Mm-hmm. We want the guarantee that things aren't going to break. And God's like, you're not, the only guarantee is that I am with you. Mm-hmm.
Let's think about this for a sec, Ted. Why would somebody put a guarantee on a box? Very interesting.
Go on, I'm listening.
Here's the way I see it, Ted. Guy puts a fancy guarantee in a box because he wants you to feel all warm and toasty inside.
Yeah, makes a man feel good.
Of course it does. Why shouldn't it? You figure you put that little box under your pillow at night, the guarantee fairy might come by and leave a quarter. Am I right, Ted?
What's your point?
The point is, how do you know the fairy isn't a crazy glue sniffer? Building model airplanes, says the little fairy. Well, we're not buying it. He sneaks into your house once, that's all it takes. Next thing you know, there's money missing off the dresser and your daughter's knocked up. I've seen it 100 times.
But why do they put a guarantee on the box, then?
Because they know all they sold you was a guaranteed piece of shit. That's all it is, isn't it? Hey, if you want me to take a dump in a box and mark it guaranteed, I will. I got spare time. But for now, for your customer's sake, for your daughter's sake, you might want to think about buying a quality product from me.
Okay, I'll buy from you.
Oh, that's... What?
That scene hit for me because we want to chase that guarantee so bad. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to guarantee that things are going to work out. But like you were saying with your wife, my problem is my dreams are too small.
Yeah.
Somebody, I can't remember who it was that prayed that says, protect me from the things I'm praying for. Protect me from the things I want that won't be good for my heart. And like we do want that guarantee that everything's going to work out all right. Everything's going to be fine. Our kids are going to be, honor students and get good jobs and not screw up. And all that does is help us sleep at night, but it's a load of shit.
Yeah.
Whoever's preaching that gospel of if you do the right thing, you're going to be blessed, everything's up and to the right, is all a bunch of shit in a box.
That's exactly what it is. And didn't Jesus himself say, in this world you will have trouble?
Yeah.
But take heart, for I have overcome the world. And that everything in this movie, our entire conversation we've been orbiting around, just points right back to that, is to use that or view that beloved son identity as your rock solid foundation. That's your true north, right? That's your, pick your analogy. That's the still point around which we move. That's the thing. And without that, then eventually, yeah, it probably is all gonna come crashing down. And we have no guarantees of it not crashing down, but at least we've got Jesus. Like you said before then, Tommy had nothing to lose because the company was already going under. Zelensky was already knocking at the door. And if he does nothing, I mean, he has nothing to lose. That's a beautiful way to say it.
In John Eldridge's book, Experience Jesus Really, he talks about finding refuge. And what he says is, you are safe and secure in the refuge of God. That is the major theme.
Yes.
But the enemy is arrogant, and he loves to intimidate us by making the war seem like the major theme. It is not.
Yes.
And that idea of the refuge is the center of the heart of God, of God loves me and God is good. That's where we can find refuge. In the world around us, when the enemy is trying to say, no, that's not true. Right? Look at what just happened. You just lost your job. Your daughter just got pregnant. Your dad just died, in Tommy's case. Like all these things, you're not safe. But when we can find ourselves, when we can ignore is probably not the right word. If we can set aside the scars feeling real, and I'm not diminishing the scars and the wounds and the pain that we endure, but even in it, if we trust that God loves us and God is good, even when everything externally says otherwise, then we will find that refuge. Then we will find that center of beloved son. And yeah, we when we're there, we can live out of that strength, live out of the overflow of our identity. And we're like, oh, that didn't work out. Okay, God, I'm giving that to you. I'm trusting you, even when everything tells me not to. And that's what faith is.
Yeah.
It's seeing something that doesn't currently exist. It's believing something that you're like, everything in me tells me not to believe it, but I'm believing that you love me and you're good. And I'm going to hold on to that like a raft in the storm to get me through.
Right, because there will be storms, as we talked about before. And, you talk about faith and read the rest of Hebrews 11, the Hall of Fame of Faith. I mean, the dude's talking about guys getting torn apart by wolves and getting sawn in two and living in caves and all this thing. And, yeah, there's no guarantee of, it's not all going to be puppy dogs and ice cream and, rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
But that's where, but isn't there something, a part of your heart as a man that doesn't want puppy dogs and ice cream all the time? You want to go out and do those things and do the hard things. Now I'll go do the hard things and I'll probably complain about them and grumble the whole time, but
that's our Gen X self.
It's kind of, it is. It really is. But at the same time, it's, those are the things that really stick and where you really see that, yeah, okay, maybe I did trust God more than I thought I did in this area. Yeah. And I'm thinking specifically a few years ago, we went to Montana on a guys trip, a bunch of guys in my kind of world here. And I think there were 8 of us, and we had a catastrophic failure of a backpacking trip that was my part to plan. And from one perspective, I mean, it was talking about going down in flames. We missed a turn off and it was getting dark and we didn't know where we were. We didn't have any water. And finally I rallied everybody and said, all right, guys, we're camping here tonight, and then we're turning around and we're going back, because we know that if we turn around and walk on that trail, eventually we'll get back to the trailhead. Up here, we're not sure. And we had a couple of guys who were a little gimpy, and we didn't have any water, and it was hot. And what was supposed to be 4 days turned out to be an overnight, a really hard, long overnight. That was 3 years ago. And I just talked to a couple of those guys the other day, and we were all talking about, man, remember we got lost that one time? That was awesome. That was awesome. That was so cool. That was such a great trip. It forged something in us.
Right. And
just like Tommy and Richard, they forged themselves through that initiation and became, is it too much of a stretch to say they became more trustworthy to inherit that kingdom that was theirs already, that was Tommy's already, but he became more trustworthy to inherit that, because now he knew what the Lord knew, was that he knew that he would run it well. He would lead his people well. He would care for the hearts of his people well. But he had to go through all those trials to really come to that knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is another beautiful part of this movie that we could spend another 2 hours talking about. But,
right.
Sadly, one or both of us is going to have to go to the bathroom before then.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of other themes that we could definitely have touched on. And it's sneaky because you don't think of it until you see it. And like you just said, brotherhood is forged through those trials. When you go through them together, you see what the other person's made of. And in some ways you speak them, like Richard needed to speak life to Tommy.
Yeah.
And Tommy needed to love Richard.
Yeah.
And show him that you could find joy. And even though they're two boys without a father, they could still experience the father's love.
Yes. Yes. And do it together and differently in their own ways. And, again, with the car, I mean, Richard was like, the car was his thing. That was his whole world. He was living in a zero sum. Like, if anything happens to this car, my world is going to be completely rocked.
Those M&Ms rattling around, it's going to kill the resale value.
It's going to up the resale value, right? You hold on to a car this, Jerry, kind of like your suitcase. And so, but then again, I just keep thinking, I know we talked about it, but I keep thinking of watching that car just get absolutely destroyed, mostly by Tommy and the deer, but mostly by Tommy. But then he's so caught up in, now he's taken up with the mission that the small story of the car that he was living in just doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't care. And that part's really cool too. And
that's what happens when we experience the love of the Father and receive that as beloved sons.
Yeah.
The smaller story doesn't matter as much as the larger story we're called into.
For sure.
And that's the story of our Father's kingdom.
Yeah.
So, like you said, we could keep talking about this, some different aspects. We've talked probably long enough, I think. So
were you as surprised as I was by some of the deeper things that have come out in you when you were watching this, or as we're talking? I've been kind of surprised by this. You know? Because when I was in college, this is just a funny movie, a little poignant, but it's a funny movie. There's a lot to this.
Right. And there's funny movies that are empty.
Yeah.
But then this one is a little more, this one sticks to you. And, it becomes part of our vernacular and the way we talk. And so, Paul, thanks for helping me revisit this and taking me back into my college days and some of the joy and the friendship and the brotherhood that we enjoyed back then.
Yes.
And realize that that's still available today.
Yeah.
So this has been Paul McDonald and Paul Nichols talking about Tommy Boy. If you haven't watched it in a while, go see it. If you've never seen it, you should jump on that and fix that gap, that deficiency in your initiation.
And do it quickly.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?